Salesforce Sales Cloud, 40 Modern Enterprise Scenarios.
Welcome to the ultimate Salesforce Sales Cloud Scenarios Interview Masterclass. In the modern enterprise landscape, interviewers are no longer asking how to create a custom field or a simple workflow. They are handing you broken business processes, complex architectural bottlenecks, and high-stakes data disasters, and asking you to fix them. In this masterclass, we will solve 40 highly advanced, real-world scenarios that separate standard administrators from elite Salesforce architects and senior consultants.
The 8 core pillars of Sales Cloud.
We have divided these 40 critical interview scenarios into 8 specialized categories. Category 1, lead management and qualification, routing, scoring, and complex conversions. Category 2, opportunity and revenue management, stage automation, splits, and approvals. Category 3, security, access, and visibility, OWDs, hierarchies, and attribute-based sharing. Category 4, data quality and large data volumes, enterprise deduplication and data skew. Category 5, automation architecture, flow execution limits and governor guardrails. Category 6, reporting and forecasting, collaborative forecasting and pipeline intelligence. Category 7, modern AI and productivity, Agentforce data cloud and dynamic experiences. Category 8, enterprise integrations, API limits, middleware, and ERP synchronization. Total 40 advanced scenarios across 8 categories. Let's start Category 1.
Category 1, lead management and qualification scenarios.
We begin with the top of the funnel, lead management. In modern enterprise organizations, the lead object is a high-volume battleground between marketing automation systems and hungry sales representatives. You will face scenarios regarding massive duplicate imports, integration failures, intelligent routing bottlenecks, and highly complex conversion errors. Let's secure the start of the sales journey.
Category 1, lead management scenarios 1 to 5.
Here are the 5 high-stakes lead management scenarios we will solve in this category. Scenario 1, resolving massive validation and trigger failures during lead conversion. Scenario 2, architecting SLA-based intelligent routing for a global sales team. Scenario 3, resolving technical scoring conflicts between Marketing Cloud and Sales Cloud. Scenario 4, cleaning up massive duplicate lead imports from third-party systems. Scenario 5, troubleshooting inbound lead capture failures across REST APIs and legacy web forms. Let's dive into Scenario 1.
Scenario 1, during the end-of-quarter rush, users report that lead conversion is failing randomly. Some leads convert successfully, while others throw validation rule errors, create duplicate accounts, or fail due to inactive statuses, causing major delays in pipeline creation. How do you troubleshoot and re-architect this conversion process?
Answer: lead conversion failures in an enterprise org are usually a collision of mapped fields, strict validation rules, and automation execution order. I would resolve this using these 4 steps. 1. Audit the entire automation chain. Review before save flows, after save flows, apex triggers, validation rules, and duplicate rules on the account, contact, and opportunity objects to ensure null fail during the lead conversion transaction. 2. Fix record type and status assignments. Ensure the default record types assigned to the converting user's profile are active, and verify that the converted lead status is actively mapped in the lead process's setup. 3. Bypass legacy validations. Use a hidden checkbox or custom permission mapped during conversion to bypass legacy validation rules on the account object that should not apply to brand new converted leads. 4. Evaluate duplicate rule settings. Ensure duplicate rules for accounts and contacts are set to allow with an alert rather than block, so the conversion does not hard fail, and train reps to utilize the choose existing modal. Pro tip: flows cause more conversion failures than Apex today. If you must require validation rules on converted accounts, enforce them via a record-triggered flow that explicitly checks is converted equals true rather than hard blocking the system-level conversion transaction.
Scenario 2, your global enterprise uses standard lead assignment rules, but leads from the APAC region are sitting untouched for days in a generic queue, causing a massive drop in conversion rates and breaching service-level agreements. How would you design an intelligent, SLA-based routing architecture to fix this?
Answer: standard assignment rules are often too rigid for global SLA tracking. I would upgrade the routing architecture using this scalable, flow-based framework. 1. Implement flow-based intelligent routing. Migrate from static assignment rules to a centralized record-triggered flow that handles round-robin distribution, territory-based routing, and skill-based assignments. 2. Establish time-based SLA escalations. Build a scheduled flow that runs hourly to check the unread by owner flag on lead records, automatically reassigning the lead to a regional manager if it exceeds a 24-hour SLA. 3. Deploy fallback queues. Ensure every routing branch in your flow has a final catch-all outcome that drops unmatched leads into a monitored global triage queue so no record ever fails silently. 4. Normalize regional data inputs. Enforce strict state and country pick lists on lead capture forms so routing rules do not fail due to users typing abbreviations like UK instead of United Kingdom. Pro tip: never use hard-coded user IDs in your routing flows or assignment rules. Always route to queues or public groups. If a specific user leaves the company, hard-coded rules will break silently and send leads into a black hole.
Scenario 3. There's a massive technical discrepancy in your pipeline generation. Marketing Cloud Account Engagement, formerly Pardot, gives a lead a score of 92, but Einstein lead scoring gives it a 40. Sales reps complain these leads never convert and refuse to work them. How do you align technical scoring with the business lifecycle?
Answer: I would resolve this technical misalignment by establishing a strict MQL to SAL to SQL lifecycle data contract. First, I would audit the scoring criteria. Marketing Cloud Account Engagement grading should focus on demographic fit and behavioral engagement to define the marketing qualified lead, while Einstein lead scoring should act as a predictive overlay based on historical conversion trends. I would then implement a sales accepted lead gate. When an MQL is routed, sales must actively accept it SAL or disqualify it with a required rejection reason. This closed-loop feedback helps marketing continuously refine qualification criteria and allows the business to measure whether Einstein predictions align with actual conversion outcomes. Pro tip: do not rely solely on an AI black box score for routing. Blend predictive Einstein scores with rule-based marketing cloud grading, ensuring that baseline business requirements, like confirmed budget and authority, must be met before a lead is ever handed to a sales rep.
Scenario 4. The marketing team imports a list of 50,000 leads from an industry trade show. The integration user bypassed your duplicate rules, resulting in thousands of duplicate records that corrupt your campaign ROI reporting and frustrate the sales team. How do you clean this up and prevent it at the enterprise level?
Answer: massive duplicate injection is a common enterprise data architecture failure. I would resolve the cleanup and secure the ingestion layer using these steps. 1. Execute Salesforce duplicate jobs. Run native duplicate jobs in Salesforce to identify the matches across the org, and use an enterprise tool like Demand Tools or a custom Apex batch to mass merge records, retaining the oldest created date as the master. 2. Audit integration bypass permissions. Review whether the marketing integration user intentionally holds a permission set to bypass duplicate rules. Determine if that behavior is still appropriate or if the middleware needs to handle deduplication pre-insertion. 3. Enforce cross-object matching rules. Upgrade your matching rules to check lead against contact. A new lead should never be created if that person is already an active contact in your Salesforce database. 4. Implement pre-ingestion cleansing. Establish a data staging protocol where massive trade show lists are processed and matched using data cloud, ETL tools, or middleware before records are inserted into Sales Cloud. Pro tip: when handling large data volumes, relying on exact email matches is not enough. Implement fuzzy matching logic on company names and email domains to catch variations like Acme Corporation versus Acme Corporation.
Scenario 5. Your enterprise inbound pipeline drops to zero overnight. Both the legacy web to lead forms and the new REST API integrations from your middleware MuleSoft or HubSpot are failing silently to create records in Salesforce. How do you troubleshoot and restore these disparate inbound lead capture paths?
Answer: when multiple ingestion paths fail simultaneously, the root cause is usually a systemic platform limit, an authentication drop, or a newly deployed schema blocker. I would troubleshoot the architecture using these steps. 1. Audit API and web to lead limits. Verify if the org has hit the strict 500 web to lead daily limit or the 24-hour API request limit. If exceeded, implement a temporary API-based ingestion endpoint, middleware queue, or a staging database to prevent lead loss until the primary integration is restored, or secondary API-based integration to capture the overflow. 2. Review middleware authentication. Navigate to the connected apps and OAuth settings to ensure the integration user token utilized by MuleSoft or HubSpot has not expired or been locked out due to password policies. 3. Validate hidden schema blockers. Verify if a newly deployed validation rule or a globally required custom field was recently added to the lead object. This will instantly block all external API inserts that do not map that specific field. 4. Check the default lead creator. Verify if the user assigned as the default lead creator has been deactivated or is missing required object permissions, which causes legacy inbound creation to fail silently. Pro tip: set up a catch-all error alert on your integrations. Use a middleware dead letter queue or an inbound email service that notifies the architecture team immediately when a REST payload gets rejected by a Salesforce validation rule.
Category 1 Conclusion.
Mastering lead management establishes you as an enterprise architect who can secure the very top of the sales funnel. By resolving complex conversion validation errors, deploying intelligent flow-based routing, aligning technical scoring across platforms, and bulletproofing your inbound ingestion layer against duplicates and limit failures, you guarantee a clean, high-velocity pipeline.
Are you tired of generic interview prep? You can spend weeks studying generic interview questions, only to walk into a tech interview and realize they are asking about completely different tools and real-world scenarios. A tech title means nothing. A data engineer, DevOps engineer, or SAP consultant role is completely different at every single company. If you are not studying for the exact tech stack in the job description, you are wasting your time. That is exactly the problem we solve. Whether your upcoming interview is for SAP, DevOps, Salesforce, data engineering, cloud architecture, or cybersecurity, we will build a custom interview cheat sheet designed specifically for your target role. How we build your masterclass: you send us the exact job description. We analyze the technologies, the dependencies, and the seniority level. Then, we prepare a highly customized package with predicted interview rounds, realistic mock interview scripts, and targeted technical questions and answers. Stop guessing what managers will ask. If you have an upcoming interview and would like customized mock interview scripts and targeted practice questions and answers built specifically around your job description, feel free to email me at inquiry.aceinterviews@gmail.com. Please include these 4 details. 1. Your exact job description. 2. Your target role. 3. The interview date if known. 4. Your relevant experience level. Walk in with absolute confidence. I will personally review your submission and let you know what type of preparation package would provide the most value. We will analyze the requirements and build the exact custom mock scripts and questions and answers you need to get the offer. What if you people want a continuous study instead, with most commonly asked interview questions and answers PDFs? But what if you do not have an active interview lined up right now? If you want to proactively build your skills over time, we have recently launched our Master Vault subscription model. This is an all-access pass containing most commonly asked interview questions and answers PDFs of various tech roles in every single major technology like DevOps, SAP, testing, Salesforce, data engineering, cloud, Java and Python, etc. Choose the full bundle or specific paths, but we understand that unlocking every technology at once might feel overwhelming. If you are solely an SAP consultant, a Salesforce developer, or a DevOps engineer, you do not need the entire Master Vault. We redesigned the ecosystem so you can subscribe to the unrestricted full bundle or choose individual targeted vaults tailored specifically to your career. The universal interview tip. Whenever you ask a tech VP or an industry mentor how to crack a tough interview, they all give you the exact same tip: get familiar with the most commonly asked interview questions. It sounds simple, right? But here is the problem. The search nightmare. Finding the actual most commonly asked questions for senior roles is a nightmare. Generic Google searches only give you basic textbook definitions. and those will not help you clear a lead architect or senior engineer round where production reality matters. Imagine a master vault. Now, imagine a vault where the absolute most commonly asked interview questions for your specific role are already collected for you, perfectly organized by interview rounds like 1. Most commonly asked technical-based question and answers. 2. Most commonly asked scenario-based question and answers. 3. Most commonly asked real-world problem-solving question and answers. 4. Most commonly asked system design question and answers. 5. Most commonly asked behavioral-based question and answers. Cross-domain mastery. I built the ACE Interviews Master Vault for the modern architect. We did not just do this for one role. We covered everything: SAP, cybersecurity, DevOps, software testing, data engineering, Java, and Python. The ultimate all-access deal. Instead of paying for individual PDFs, you can now unlock our entire database. Get over 1,000 plus PDFs containing 50,000 plus of the most asked question and answers for a mere 1,499 rupees a month. The elite transformation. Stop studying just to pass. Equip yourself with the cross-domain confidence of a true architect and walk out of your next interview choosing between 2 or 3 elite job offers. Unlock the vault now. The era of buying individual guides is over. Click the link in the video description below right now to unlock the Master Vault. Now, let's get back to the masterclass.
Transition from Category 1 to Category 2.
However, capturing and qualifying a lead is only the first step. Once a lead converts, the real complexity of the sales cycle begins. We must now govern how teams collaborate on massive deals, how pricing and quotes are synchronized, and how rigid approval processes are optimized for speed. We now transition to the absolute core of Sales Cloud. Category 2. Opportunity and Revenue Management.
Category 2. Opportunity Lifecycle and Revenue Management Scenarios.
Opportunity and revenue management scenarios govern the heartbeat of the enterprise. Interviewers will test your ability to untangle overlapping automations during stage changes, resolve commission disputes using complex split configurations, and rescue sales cycles that are paralyzed by rigid, locked approval processes. Mastering this category proves you can protect the company's revenue engine.
Category 2. Opportunity Lifecycle and Revenue Scenarios 6 to 10.
Here are the 5 critical revenue management scenarios we will solve in this category. Scenario 6. Untangling automation limits and CPU timeouts during stage transitions. Scenario 7. Architecting safe opportunity ownership transition without breaking pipeline access. Scenario 8. Resolving commission disputes using advanced collaborative selling splits. Scenario 9. Fixing revenue discrepancies via strict quote-to-opportunity integrity. Scenario 10. Eliminating sales cycle bottlenecks caused by rigid discount approval processes. Let's dive into Scenario 6.
Scenario 6. A major enterprise has multiple record-triggered flows, validation rules, and legacy Apex triggers all firing when an opportunity moves to closed one. Sales reps are experiencing severe CPU timeout limits and DML errors, completely blocking them from closing deals at month-end. How do you troubleshoot and re-architect this stage automation?
Answer: uncontrolled stage automation creates a catastrophic bottleneck at the most critical point of the sales cycle. I would untangle and optimize the execution architecture using these 4 steps. 1. Audit the order of execution. Map out the exact sequence of before-save flows, validation rules, Apex triggers, and after-save flows to identify overlapping logic or recursive loops triggering multiple database updates. 2. Consolidate to a one-flow framework. Migrate disjointed after-save flows into a single, master record-triggered flow for the opportunity object, utilizing subflows to govern the closed-won actions linearly. 3. Offload to asynchronous processing. Move heavy, non-critical downstream operations, like generating renewal opportunities or sending external billing payloads, to asynchronous paths inside the flow to free up the synchronous CPU transaction. 4. Implement entry condition guardrails. Ensure every automation explicitly uses is changed with stage name and its entry criteria rather than firing continuously every time a closed record is edited. Pro tip: legacy workflow rules and process builders often contribute to automation sprawl. During CPU timeout investigations, review whether overlapping legacy automation can be consolidated into modern flow or Apex to drastically reduce execution time.
Scenario 7. A regional manager bulk transfers 500 open opportunities to a newly hired sales representative. Immediately, previous opportunity team members lose access, collaborative forecasts break, and open tasks are left orphaned, creating massive pipeline confusion. How do you govern and architect a safe owner transition process?
Answer: bulk owner changes can aggressively alter sharing tables and related record ownership. I would architect a controlled transition process using these steps. 1. Govern team retention. Standardize ownership transfer procedures by requiring managers to use the Keep Opportunity Team option during manual transfers. For automated or bulk ownership changes, build Apex or Flow automation that re-establishes opportunity team members after the ownership transition, ensuring collaboration and record visibility are preserved. 2. Automate open activity reassignment. Build a specialized batch Apex job or flow that queries all open related tasks and events, giving managers the option to dynamically transfer them to the new owner or leave them with the original creator. 3. Trigger split recalculations. Ensure your backend automation handles the recalculation of revenue splits so the new owner assumes the exact quota assignments without breaking the forecast rollup. 4. Manage queue to user transitions. Audit any custom mapping where ownership might shift from a queue directly to a user, ensuring enterprise territory management assignment rules fire correctly upon transfer. Pro tip: when you change an opportunity owner, Salesforce automatically recalculates the sharing rules for that record. If you are doing this for 10,000 records via data loader, always enable defer sharing calculations during the import to prevent the system from locking up.
Scenario 8. A complex enterprise sells software involving account executives, overlay solution engineers, and external partner managers. The finance team is furious because commission roll-ups are exceeding 100% of the deal amount, while solution engineers complain they have no visibility into the pipeline. How do you architect a compliant collaborative selling model?
Answer: I would resolve this conflict by implementing a strict opportunity splits architecture combined with automated opportunity teams. First, to solve the visibility issue, I would map default account teams to automatically cascade down to the opportunity level, ensuring solution engineers instantly gain read and write access to the deals they support. Next, to fix the commission dispute, I would implement two distinct split types. I configure a revenue split strictly for account executives, which the system mandates must always total exactly 100%. Then, I configure an overlay split for the solution engineers and partner managers, including partner users operating out of Experience Cloud, which can legally exceed 100% based on their specific quota structures without inflating the company's primary gross revenue forecast. Pro tip: never let sales reps manually add team members if they follow a strict territory model. Use a record-triggered flow to add the solution engineer to the opportunity team based on the product region or industry pick list to ensure flawless collaboration.
Scenario 9. The VP of Sales discovers a severe 15% discrepancy between the opportunity amount pipeline and the actual approved PDF quotes sent to customers. Sales reps are improperly modifying opportunity line items after a quote has already been generated and approved. How do you lock down and synchronize this quote to opportunity integrity?
Answer: data drift between quotes and opportunities destroys forecasting accuracy. I would lock down the synchronization process using these steps. 1. Enforce the syncing status. Ensure reps check the syncing checkbox on the primary quote, which structurally forces the opportunity line items to perfectly mirror the quote line items. 2. Lock after quote approval. Deploy a validation rule or flow on the opportunity that prevents users from manually adding, editing, or deleting opportunity products once the primary quote is officially approved or sent to legal. 3. Audit price book consistency. Build a validation check to ensure the opportunity and the primary quote are utilizing the exact same price book, preventing silent sync failures caused by mismatched currency or catalog IDs. 4. Automate primary quote enforcement. Build a flow that requires an opportunity to have exactly one approved. Syncing quote before the record can be moved to the closed one stage. Pro tip: when a quote starts syncing, it completely overwrites all existing opportunity products. Always warn your sales reps that syncing is a destructive action for the opportunity line items, so they should only sync when the quote reflects the absolute source of truth.
Scenario 10. A multi-tiered discount approval process is causing severe sales bottlenecks. Deals are stuck in the queue when regional directors are on vacation, and sales reps complain they cannot quickly pull back and correct a submission if they made a typo. How do you redesign this approval architecture to restore business continuity?
Answer: rigid approval architectures actively kill deal momentum. I would redesign the approval flow to balance compliance with velocity using these strategies. 1. Deploy delegated approvers. Mandate that all regional directors configure a delegated approver in their user settings before going on leave, ensuring discount requests dynamically route to a backup manager. 2. Enable approval recall. Ensure the allow submitters to recall approval request setting is active, empowering reps to instantly pull back and correct a discount request if they realize they submitted the wrong margin. 3. Configure time-based escalations. Modify the approval process steps to automatically escalate the request to the VP of Sales or auto-approve low-risk discounts if the initial approver takes no action within 48 hours. 4. Migrate to advanced approvals. If the tiering logic is too complex for standard approvals, migrate to flow orchestration if licensed, or flow orchestration where licensed, or an advanced approvals solution such as Salesforce CPQ or Revenue Cloud. Advanced approvals for highly dynamic approval chains to allow for parallel approving and dynamic routing. Pro tip: the biggest mistake admins make is locking the entire opportunity when only the discount percentage needs to be frozen. If reps need to update tasks or notes while it is locked, remind them that related child records like activities or chatter remain fully editable even when the parent opportunity is locked.
Category 2 Conclusion.
Mastering opportunity and revenue management proves you can safeguard the enterprise's financial engine. By architecting scalable stage automation, executing flawless ownership transitions, structuring complex collaborative splits, and untangling rigid approval processes, you ensure that the sales cycle remains fast, compliant, and highly accurate.
Are you tired of generic interview prep? You can spend weeks studying generic interview questions, only to walk into a tech interview and realize they are asking about completely different tools and real-world scenarios. A tech title means nothing. A data engineer, DevOps engineer, or SAP consultant role is completely different at every single company. If you are not studying for the exact tech stack in the job description, you are wasting your time. That is exactly the problem we solve. Whether your upcoming interview is for SAP, DevOps, Salesforce, data engineering, cloud architecture, or cybersecurity, we will build a custom interview cheat sheet designed specifically for your target role. How we build your masterclass: you send us the exact job description. We analyze the technologies, the dependencies, and the seniority level. Then, we prepare a highly customized package with predicted interview rounds, realistic mock interview scripts, and targeted technical questions and answers. Stop guessing what managers will ask. If you have an upcoming interview and would like customized mock interview scripts and targeted practice questions and answers built specifically around your job description, feel free to email me at inquiry.aceinterviews@gmail.com. Please include these 4 details. 1. Your exact job description. 2. Your target role. 3. The interview date if known. 4. Your relevant experience level. Walk in with absolute confidence. I will personally review your submission and let you know what type of preparation package would provide the most value. We will analyze the requirements and build the exact custom mock scripts and questions and answers you need to get the offer. What if you people want a continuous study instead, with most commonly asked interview questions and answers PDFs? But what if you do not have an active interview lined up right now? If you want to proactively build your skills over time, we have recently launched our Master Vault subscription model. This is an all-access pass containing most commonly asked interview questions and answers PDFs of various tech roles in every single major technology like DevOps, SAP, testing, Salesforce, data engineering, cloud, Java and Python, etc. Choose the full bundle or specific paths, but we understand that unlocking every technology at once might feel overwhelming. If you are solely an SAP consultant, a Salesforce developer, or a DevOps engineer, you do not need the entire Master Vault. We redesigned the ecosystem so you can subscribe to the unrestricted full bundle or choose individual targeted vaults tailored specifically to your career. The universal interview tip. Whenever you ask a tech VP or an industry mentor how to crack a tough interview, they all give you the exact same tip. Get familiar with the most commonly asked interview questions. It sounds simple, right? But here is the problem. The search nightmare. Finding the actual most commonly asked questions for senior roles is a nightmare. Generic Google searches only give you basic textbook definitions, and those will not help you clear a lead architect or senior engineer round where production reality matters. Imagine a master vault. Now, imagine a vault where the absolute most commonly asked interview questions for your specific role are already collected for you, perfectly organized by interview rounds like 1. Most commonly asked technical-based question and answers. 2. Most commonly asked scenario-based question and answers. 3. Most commonly asked real-world problem-solving question and answers. 4. Most commonly asked system design question and answers. 5. Most commonly asked behavioral-based question and answers. Cross-domain mastery. I built the ACE Interviews Master Vault for the modern architect. We did not just do this for one role. We covered everything: SAP, cybersecurity, DevOps, software testing, data engineering, Java, and Python. The ultimate all-access deal. Instead of paying for individual PDFs, you can now unlock our entire database. Get over 1,000 plus PDFs containing 50,000 plus of the most asked question and answers for a mere 1,499 rupees a month. The elite transformation. Stop studying just to pass. Equip yourself with the cross-domain confidence of a true architect and walk out of your next interview choosing between 2 or 3 elite job offers. Unlock the vault now. The era of buying individual guides is over. Click the link in the video description below right now to unlock the Master Vault. Now, let's get back to the Masterclass.
Transition from Category 2 to Category 3.
However, as deals grow larger and pipelines become more complex, the risk of internal data exposure skyrockets. A perfectly automated opportunity is a massive liability if the wrong user can see executive commissions, or worse, delete the record entirely. We now transition from revenue generation to the defensive iron cage of the platform. Category 3. Security, access, and enterprise visibility.
Category 3. Security, access, and enterprise visibility scenarios.
Security and visibility is one of the most rigorously tested topics in modern Salesforce interviews. Enterprise architects must know how to implement least privilege access models, migrate away from legacy profile bloat, and resolve visibility conflicts between matrix sales teams. Mastering these scenarios demonstrates your ability to protect sensitive corporate data without crippling sales productivity.
Category 3. Security and access scenarios 11 to 15.
Here are the 5 critical security and visibility scenarios we will solve in this category. Scenario 11. Systematically troubleshooting record visibility and access failures. Scenario 12. Resolving architectural conflicts between role and manager hierarchies. Scenario 13. Executing a zero-trust permission set modernization strategy. Scenario 14. Architecting enterprise territory management for matrix sales teams. Scenario 15. Securing sensitive financial data using strict field-level security. Let's dive into Scenario 11.
Scenario 11. A furious sales VP escalates that a lead account executive cannot access a critical $5 million opportunity owned by a junior rep right before the end of quarter close. How do you systematically troubleshoot and resolve this record visibility failure?
Answer: record visibility issues require a bottom-up diagnostic approach. I would troubleshoot this using the standard visibility security model. 1. Check object-level permissions. Confirm the user has object-level read access to opportunities via their profile or permission sets, as sharing only grants record access and cannot override missing object permissions. 2. Verify organization-wide defaults OWD. Verify the baseline access for opportunities to confirm if the org is truly locked down to private or public read only. 3. Audit the role hierarchy. Check if the account executive sits above the junior rep in the role hierarchy and ensure grant access using hierarchies is enabled on the opportunity object. 4. Analyze sharing rules and teams. Inspect criteria-based sharing rules, manual sharing, or verify if the account executive was accidentally removed from the opportunity team. Pro tip: never guess. Always use the sharing or view sharing, where available action on the record in Salesforce to determine exactly how the user receives access. It will list the exact sharing rule, hierarchy, or team granting the permission.
Scenario 12. A conflict arises during a global rollout. The HR director insists that expense approvals must follow the exact manager reporting lines, but the VP of Sales demands that record visibility be based purely on regional territories. How do you architect the system to satisfy both requirements without creating a bloated role hierarchy?
Answer: I would resolve this by decoupling record access from the approval chain. First, I would build the role hierarchy strictly to satisfy the VP of Sales, basing it entirely on data visibility needs, such as regional or product-based hierarchies, because role hierarchy dictates what users can see. Second, for the HR director's requirement, I would utilize the manager field on the user record. This allows standard approval processes to route dynamically to a user's direct line manager, completely independent of their position in the regional role hierarchy. This architectural split ensures bulletproof visibility while maintaining perfect HR compliance. Pro tip: do not attempt to map your Salesforce role hierarchy one-to-one with your company's HR org chart. The role hierarchy is a data access tool, not an HR reporting tool.
Scenario 13. A security audit reveals the org is suffering from profile sprawl, with over 150 bloated profiles. Sales reps are accidentally deleting accounts because broad access was incorrectly granted. How do you migrate to a modern, zero-trust security architecture without disrupting the active sales floor?
Answer: profile sprawl is a massive technical debt risk. I would execute a phased migration to a modern permission set architecture using these steps. 1. Assign required permission set licenses (PSLs). Assign the appropriate permission set licenses for licensed Salesforce products before granting the related permission sets, ensuring users can access only the features included in their purchased licenses. 2. Build role-based permission set groups (PSGs). Group granular permission sets, for example. Create leads. Edit ops into singular PSGs aligned to the user's actual job function, like SDR or account executive. 3. Implement muting permission sets. Use muting permission sets within a PSG to temporarily revoke specific access, like deleting accounts, for junior reps without needing to alter the underlying core permission sets. 4. Automate permission assignment. Use user access policies where available, flow, identity solutions, or provisioning processes to automatically assign and revoke these PSGs during user onboarding and role changes. Pro tip: with Salesforce officially driving toward the end of life for permissions on profiles, every new field or object you create today should be mapped to a permission set, not a profile.
Scenario 14. Your enterprise is shifting from a simple geographic sales model to a complex overlay matrix, where account executives sell by geography and solution specialists sell by product line. The standard role hierarchy is maxed out and failing to share records correctly. How do you architect this using enterprise territory management?
Answer: when a sales organization moves to a matrix structure, the standard role hierarchy cannot scale. I would transition to enterprise territory management (ETM) using this architecture. 1. Define territory types and models. Create distinct territory types for geographic regions and product overlays, organizing them into a unified active territory model. 2. Establish account assignment rules. Build dynamic assignment rules that automatically evaluate an account's billing state or industry and assign it to the correct geographic territory node. 3. Configure opportunity filter logic. Implement opportunity territory assignment filters, including Apex-based filters where business rules require custom logic, to automatically assign newly created opportunities to the correct territory based on the account's territory footprint. 4. Manage forecast rollups. Enable territory forecasts so that overlay teams and geographic teams can each roll up their respective quotas without double counting the company's gross revenue. Pro tip: always build and test your new ETM rules in a planning state model first. You can run the rules in preview mode to see exactly how accounts will be reassigned before you push the model to active.
Scenario 15. The CFO discovers an internal HR crisis. Junior sales development reps SDRs have been viewing executive commission structures and raw product margin fields on the opportunity page. How do you secure this sensitive financial data while still allowing junior reps to update the opportunity stage?
Answer: I would immediately lock down the sensitive data using a strict field-level security FLS model. I would remove read and edit access for the commission and product margin fields across all baseline profiles and permission sets assigned to the SDR team. For the executive team, I would create a dedicated executive financial visibility permission set that explicitly grants read access to those specific fields. This ensures the SDRs can still view the opportunity, edit the stage, and log their calls, but the sensitive financial data is completely invisible to them on the page layout, in reports, and via the API. Pro tip: page layouts are not a security tool. Hiding a field on a page layout still leaves it fully accessible via reports, list views, or SOQL queries. Similarly, dynamic forms improve the user experience by conditionally displaying fields, but they do not replace field-level security for protecting sensitive data.
Category 3 Conclusion.
Mastering security and visibility demonstrates that you can protect the enterprise's most sensitive information. By successfully troubleshooting record access, transitioning away from profile sprawl to permission set groups, architecting enterprise territory management, and locking down field-level security, you ensure a bulletproof, zero-trust data model.
Are you tired of generic interview prep? You can spend weeks studying generic interview questions, only to walk into a tech interview and realize they are asking about completely different tools and real-world scenarios. A tech title means nothing. A data engineer, DevOps engineer, or SAP consultant role is completely different at every single company. If you are not studying for the exact tech stack in the job description, you are wasting your time. That is exactly the problem we solve. Whether your upcoming interview is for SAP, DevOps, Salesforce, data engineering, cloud architecture, or cybersecurity, we will build a custom interview cheat sheet designed specifically for your target role. How we build your masterclass: you send us the exact job description. We analyze the technologies, the dependencies, and the seniority level. Then, we prepare a highly customized package with predicted interview rounds, realistic mock interview scripts, and targeted technical questions and answers. Stop guessing what managers will ask. If you have an upcoming interview and would like customized mock interview scripts and targeted practice questions and answers built specifically around your job description, feel free to email me at inquiry.aceinterviews@gmail.com. Please include these 4 details. 1. Your exact job description. 2. Your target role. 3. The interview date if known. 4. Your relevant experience level. Walk in with absolute confidence. I will personally review your submission and let you know what type of preparation package would provide the most value. We will analyze the requirements and build the exact custom mock scripts and questions and answers you need to get the offer. What if you people want a continuous study instead, with most commonly asked interview questions and answers PDFs? But what if you do not have an active interview lined up right now? If you want to proactively build your skills over time, we have recently launched our Master Vault subscription model. This is an all-access pass containing most commonly asked interview questions and answers PDFs of various tech roles in every single major technology like DevOps, SAP, testing, Salesforce, data engineering, cloud, Java and Python, etc. Choose the full bundle or specific paths, but we understand that unlocking every technology at once might feel overwhelming. If you are solely an SAP consultant, a Salesforce developer, or a DevOps engineer, you do not need the entire Master Vault. We redesigned the ecosystem so you can subscribe to the unrestricted full bundle or choose individual targeted vaults tailored specifically to your career. The universal interview tip. Whenever you ask a tech VP or an industry mentor how to crack a tough interview, they all give you the exact same tip: get familiar with the most commonly asked interview questions. It sounds simple, right? But here is the problem. The search nightmare. Finding the actual most commonly asked questions for senior roles is a nightmare. Generic Google searches only give you basic textbook definitions, and those will not help you clear a lead architect or senior engineer round where production reality matters. Imagine a master vault. Now, imagine a vault where the absolute most commonly asked interview questions for your specific role are already collected for you, perfectly organized by interview rounds like 1. Most commonly asked technical-based question and answers. 2. Most commonly asked scenario-based question and answers. 3. Most commonly asked real-world problem-solving question and answers. 4. Most commonly asked system design question and answers. 5. Most commonly asked behavioral-based question and answers. Cross-domain mastery. I built the ACE Interviews Master Vault for the modern architect. We did not just do this for one role. We covered everything: SAP, cybersecurity, DevOps, software testing, data engineering, Java, and Python. The ultimate all-access deal. Instead of paying for individual PDFs, you can now unlock our entire database. Get over 1,000 plus PDFs containing 50,000 plus of the most asked question and answers for a mere 1,499 rupees a month. The elite transformation. Stop studying just to pass. Equip yourself with the cross-domain confidence of a true architect and walk out of your next interview choosing between 2 or 3 elite job offers. Unlock the vault now. The era of buying individual guides is over. Click the link in the video description below right now to unlock the Master Vault. Now, let's get back to the masterclass.
Transition from Category 3 to Category 4.
However, having the most secure platform in the world is useless if the data inside it is garbage. A perfectly secured opportunity means nothing if it is tied to one of 5 duplicate accounts, or if the database is so skewed that the system times out every time a user saves a record. We now transition from securing the platform to optimizing its core foundation. Category 4. Data quality and large data volumes.
Category 4. Data quality and large data volumes.
Clean CRM data is the absolute foundation of Sales Cloud. In enterprise environments, interviewers will heavily test your ability to preserve data quality and platform performance at scale. You must know how to mitigate massive data skews, implement strict deduplication strategies across API integrations, navigate the limitations of Einstein activity capture, and manage global deployments with multi-currency requirements.
Category 4. Data quality scenarios 16 to 20.
Here are the 5 critical data and architecture scenarios we will solve in this category. Scenario 16. Preventing account and contact duplicates across integrations and manual entry. Scenario 17. Resolving timeout errors and record locking caused by large data volumes LDV and data skew. Scenario 18. Troubleshooting Einstein activity capture, reporting limits and missing emails. Scenario 19. Investigating missing records and delays in global search optimizations. Scenario 20. Architecting advanced currency management for global sales rollouts. Let's dive into Scenario 16.
Scenario 16. Your company integrated a new ERP, and overnight, thousands of duplicate accounts and contacts were created. The integration is failing to recognize existing records, and sales reps are logging opportunities against the wrong accounts. How do you architect an enterprise deduplication strategy?
Answer: Enterprise deduplication requires a multi-layered approach across the API and the UI. I would implement this deduplication strategy using the following steps. 1. Enforce external IDs for integrations. Create a unique, indexed ERP account ID field marked as an external ID. Configure the middleware MuleSoft or Boomi to upsert based on this ID rather than relying on name or email matching. 2. Deploy fuzzy matching rules. Build robust matching rules that go beyond exact matches, utilizing fuzzy logic for company names, for example, IBM versus international business machines, and standardizing phone number formats. 3. Configure duplicate rules with alerts. Set duplicate rules to allow with an alert and report action. Blocking entirely often breaks integrations or frustrates users, whereas reporting allows data stewards to review and merge. 4. Implement cross-object deduplication. Ensure duplicate rules evaluate across objects, such as matching a newly entered lead against all existing contacts to prevent duplicate persona creation. Pro tip: use standard duplicate jobs to scan your entire database against active matching rules for mass merging. Additionally, ensure your middleware is designed to capture and use native Salesforce record IDs for all subsequent updates after the initial external ID synchronization.
Scenario 17. A critical integration process is throwing unable to lock row errors, and users are experiencing CPU timeouts when saving contacts. You discover that a generic unassigned account owns 45,000 contacts, and one API integration user owns 2 million records. How do you resolve this large data volume crisis?
Answer: this scenario describes catastrophic account skew and ownership skew. I would resolve the system locking and timeout issues using these architectural adjustments. 1. Resolve account data skew. Break up the generic unassigned account. As a best practice, avoid concentrating very large numbers of child records under a single parent account because it increases the risk of lock contention and sharing overhead during updates. 2. Mitigate ownership skew. For the integration user owning 2 million records, ensure that this user is placed at the very top of the role hierarchy or not assigned a role at all so that sharing recalculations do not cascade through the entire org. 3. Implement custom indexing. Request Salesforce support to create custom indexes on heavily queried filter fields or mark them as external IDs to prevent full table scans during integration queries. 4. Enable deferred sharing. If you must reparent or reassign these massive skewed datasets, temporarily enable defer sharing calculations to pause the sharing engine until the data movement is complete. Pro tip: account skew does not just impact the account object. Because of implicit sharing, anytime a user edits a contact or opportunity, Salesforce locks the parent account to recalculate sharing. Having 45,000 children, virtually, guarantees a lock contention collision.
Scenario 18. The VP of Sales is angry because the Activities with Opportunities standard report is coming up completely blank, even though reps are heavily using Einstein Activity Capture (EAC) to sync their Gmail and Outlook emails. The VP demands to know where the data went and how to report on it. How do you troubleshoot and explain this?
Answer: I would explain to the VP that Einstein Activity Capture does not store synced emails and calendar events in standard Salesforce task or event objects. Instead, it stores them in Salesforce managed external storage outside the standard Salesforce data model. Because of this architecture, EAC data cannot be queried via SOQL or standard Salesforce reporting. To resolve the reporting gap, I would enable activity metrics, which aggregates EAC data and syncs summary fields, like last activity date, directly back to the opportunity and account records so they can be used in standard list views and reports. For deep analytical reporting, we must use CRM analytics where licensed or other supported EAC reporting capabilities. Pro tip: be aware of Einstein Activity Capture retention policies. Retention periods vary by product and licensing, so organizations with long-term legal or regulatory retention requirements should verify whether EAC satisfies their compliance obligations.
Scenario 19. Sales reps are complaining that when they create a new opportunity and immediately try to search for it using the global search bar, it says no results found. Furthermore, they cannot search for records using a highly specific custom field called legacy order number. How do you optimize and troubleshoot this search experience?
Answer: I would first educate the sales team on asynchronous indexing delays. When a new record is created in Salesforce, it takes a few minutes for the search engine indexer to process it before it appears in global search results. For the unsearchable legacy order number custom field, I would first verify that the field type supports search indexing, as formula fields and lookup fields behave differently. Then I would review whether the object and field are supported by global search and ensure search indexing has completed. If query performance is an issue, I would evaluate whether an external ID or custom index is appropriate. Finally, I would verify the object's search layouts, which influence how results are presented, not whether the field is actually indexed for search. Pro tip: do not confuse visibility with searchability. If a user cannot see a record in global search, always check their field-level security and record sharing first. If they do not have permission to view the record or the specific field, the search engine will silently omit it from their results.
Scenario 20. Your company is rolling out Sales Cloud globally. The executive team wants the master pipeline to roll up in US dollars, but European reps need to quote and sell in euros. Additionally, the finance team warns that historical closed-won deals are changing in value every time the exchange rate is updated. How do you architect this multi-currency rollout?
Answer: Managing global currencies while protecting historical revenue requires implementing advanced currency management (ACM). I would architect the rollout using these steps. 1. Establish corporate and user currencies. Enable multi-currency in the org. Set the corporate currency to USD for executive roll-ups and allow users to set their default personal currency to euros in their localized settings. 2. Enable advanced currency management (ACM). Activate ACM to allow for dated exchange rates. This ensures that a deal closed in January uses January's exchange rate and is completely protected from currency fluctuations when you update the rate in July. 3. Validate currency conversion across reports. Ensure reports, dashboards, collaborative forecasts, and opportunity roll-ups consistently display the corporate currency while allowing individual users to transact and view records in their local currencies. 4. Audit custom roll-ups and logic. Review all custom reporting, roll-ups, and Apex logic that relies on currency fields, because dated exchange rates are not automatically applied outside ACM-supported standard functionality. Pro tip: advanced currency management does not natively apply dated exchange rates to custom objects. If custom financial objects such as invoice require historical exchange rates, implement custom logic using Flow, Apex, or integration services as appropriate to capture and persist the correct conversion rate at the time of the business transaction.
Category 4 Conclusion.
Mastering data quality and large data volumes proves that you can design platforms built for scale. By resolving catastrophic data skews, deploying enterprise deduplication strategies, securing external integrations, and architecting multi-currency environments, you ensure that the CRM foundation remains pristine, lightning fast, and trustworthy.
Are you tired of generic interview prep? You can spend weeks studying generic interview questions, only to walk into a tech interview and realize they are asking about completely different tools and real-world scenarios. A tech title means nothing. A data engineer, DevOps engineer, or SAP consultant role is completely different at every single company. If you are not studying for the exact tech stack in the job description, you are wasting your time. That is exactly the problem we solve. Whether your upcoming interview is for SAP, DevOps, Salesforce, data engineering, cloud architecture, or cybersecurity, we will build a custom interview cheat sheet designed specifically for your target role. How we build your masterclass: you send us the exact job description. We analyze the technologies, the dependencies, and the seniority level. Then, we prepare a highly customized package with predicted interview rounds, realistic mock interview scripts, and targeted technical questions and answers. Stop guessing what managers will ask. If you have an upcoming interview and would like customized mock interview scripts and targeted practice questions and answers built specifically around your job description, feel free to email me at inquiry.aceinterviews@gmail.com. Please include these 4 details. 1. Your exact job description. 2. Your target role. 3. The interview date if known. 4. Your relevant experience level. Walk in with absolute confidence. I will personally review your submission and let you know what type of preparation package would provide the most value. We will analyze the requirements and build the exact custom mock scripts and questions and answers you need to get the offer. What if you people want a continuous study instead, with most commonly asked interview questions and answers PDFs? But what if you do not have an active interview lined up right now? If you want to proactively build your skills over time, we have recently launched our Master Vault subscription model. This is an all-access pass containing most commonly asked interview questions and answers PDFs of various tech roles in every single major technology like DevOps, SAP, testing, Salesforce, data engineering, cloud, Java and Python, etc. Choose the full bundle or specific paths, but we understand that unlocking every technology at once might feel overwhelming. If you are solely an SAP consultant, a Salesforce developer, or a DevOps engineer, you do not need the entire Master Vault. We redesigned the ecosystem so you can subscribe to the unrestricted full bundle or choose individual targeted vaults tailored specifically to your career. The universal interview tip. Whenever you ask a tech VP or an industry mentor how to crack a tough interview, they all give you the exact same tip: get familiar with the most commonly asked interview questions. It sounds simple, right? But here is the problem. The search nightmare. Finding the actual most commonly asked questions for senior roles is a nightmare. Generic Google searches only give you basic textbook definitions, and those will not help you clear a lead architect or senior engineer round where production reality matters. Imagine a master vault. Now, imagine a vault where the absolute most commonly asked interview questions for your specific role are already collected for you, perfectly organized by interview rounds like 1. Most commonly asked technical-based question and answers. 2. Most commonly asked scenario-based question and answers. 3. Most commonly asked real-world problem-solving question and answers. 4. Most commonly asked system design question and answers. 5. Most commonly asked behavioral-based question and answers. Cross-domain mastery. I built the ACE Interviews Master Vault for the modern architect. We did not just do this for one role. We covered everything: SAP, cybersecurity, DevOps, software testing, data engineering, Java, and Python. The ultimate all-access deal. Instead of paying for individual PDFs, you can now unlock our entire database. Get over 1,000 plus PDFs containing 50,000 plus of the most asked question and answers for mere 1,499 rupees a month. The elite transformation. Stop studying just to pass. Equip yourself with the cross-domain confidence of a true architect and walk out of your next interview choosing between 2 or 3 elite job offers. Unlock the vault now. The era of buying individual guides is over. Click the link in the video description below right now to unlock the Master Vault. Now, let's get back to the masterclass.
Transition from Category 4 to Category 5.
However, a clean and scalable database will instantly collapse if you layer chaotic, unoptimized automation on top of it. In the modern enterprise, poor automation design causes CPU timeouts, recursive loops, and deployment failures that can halt an entire global sales floor. We now transition to the layer where senior architects truly distinguish themselves. Category 5. Automation architecture and platform limits.
Category 5. Automation architecture and platform limits.
Automation architecture is where many Salesforce professionals transition from building functional automation to designing scalable enterprise solutions, and enterprise architects thrive. In these scenarios, interviewers will heavily test your knowledge of governor limits, bulkification, the strict Salesforce order of execution, and your ability to design robust CI and CD deployment pipelines. Mastering this category proves you can write automation that withstands massive enterprise workloads.
Category 5. Automation architecture 21 to 25.
Here are the 5 critical automation and platform limit scenarios we will solve in this category. Scenario 21. Troubleshooting record-triggered flow failures and ensuring bulkification. Scenario 22. Untangling conflicts within the strict Salesforce order of execution. Scenario 23. Resolving governor limit exceptions like SOQL 101 and CPU timeouts. Scenario 24. Establishing automation governance to eliminate technical debt. Scenario 25. Architecting Salesforce DevOps and CI and CD release management. Let's dive into Scenario 21.
Scenario 21. During an end-of-month data load, the operations team attempts to update 50,000 opportunities via data loader. The entire load fails immediately, throwing DML exceptions and SOQL limits. You discover a newly deployed record-triggered flow is crashing. How do you troubleshoot and redesign this flow for enterprise bulkification?
Answer: flow failures during data loads are almost always caused by improper bulkification design within the transaction. I would redesign the flow using these specific steps. 1. Audit loops for DML and SOQL. Repeated get records, create records, or update records elements inside a loop can rapidly consume SOQL and DML governor limits during bulk transactions, eventually causing transaction failures. 2. Utilize collection variables. Redesign the flow to assign updated values to a single record variable, add that record to a collection variable, and perform a single update on the entire collection outside of the loop. 3. Avoid recursive flow execution. Ensure record-triggered flows include appropriate entry conditions and decision logic so updates made by downstream automation do not repeatedly re-trigger the same flow within the transaction. 4. Implement fault paths. Add fault paths to all critical DML elements within the flow to gracefully catch errors, create a custom log record, and prevent the entire batch transaction from hard crashing. 5. Evaluate asynchronous paths. If the flow is making callouts to external systems or performing heavy calculations that do not need to be real-time, move those actions to an asynchronous path to free up the main transaction thread. Pro tip: Salesforce automatically bulkifies flow interviews during a data load, meaning it groups transactions together behind the scenes. But this automatic bulkification fails completely if you manually place a database operation inside a loop.
Scenario 22. A new lead conversion process is failing unpredictably. A validation rule is firing times before times and after save flow can update a critical status, and an apex trigger is mysteriously firing twice, causing duplicate integration callouts. How do you untangle and resolve this order of execution collision?
Answer: Order of execution conflicts require a deep understanding of exactly when Salesforce commits data to the database. I would untangle this collision using these diagnostic steps. 1. Map the execution sequence. Map the affected automation according to Salesforce's documented order of execution, identifying where before save flows, apex triggers, validation rules, duplicate rules, workflow rules, processes, assignment rules, and after save flows interact within the transaction. 2. Shift to before save flows. Move the critical status update from the after save flow to a before save flow fast field updates. Before save flows run times before times custom validation rules, completely bypassing the validation conflict. 3. Implement recursion control in Apex. The Apex trigger is firing twice because downstream automation is updating the record, causing the trigger to re-execute. Implement an appropriate recursion control pattern, such as static sets, maps, or framework-based recursion guards, depending on the transaction design. 4. Consolidate overlapping logic. Audit the object to ensure you do not have workflow rules, processes, and flows all competing to update the same fields, which exponentially increases transaction time and recursion. Pro tip: before save flows execute roughly 10 times faster than after save flows. If an automation only updates fields on the times triggering record, it should always be built as a before save flow to maximize performance and avoid validation rule collisions.
Scenario 23. During a massive fiscal year territory realignment, an Apex batch process designed to update account hierarchies continuously crashes with system.limit exception. Apex CPU time limit exceeded and too many SOQL queries. 101. Completely blocking the realignment. How do you optimize this performance?
Answer: Governor limit exceptions during large batch updates require systematic code and declarative optimization. I would optimize the transaction using these architectural changes. 1. Bulkify Apex queries SOQL 101. Inspect the Apex code to ensure all SOQL queries are moved outside of for loops. Use maps and sets to query all necessary related records in a single batch query before the loop begins. 2. Optimize CPU timeout. CPU time limits are shared across the entire transaction. I would identify and disable legacy workflow rules or process builders on the account object that are being re-evaluated repeatedly during the batch update. 3. Manage heap size limits. If the batch is processing massive datasets in memory, ensure you are querying only the necessary fields like query, only the fields required by the transaction to minimize heap consumption and processing overhead, and use the SOQL for loop syntax to process records in chunks. 4. Reduce batch scope size. If the logic is fully optimized and still timing out due to extreme complexity, lower the batch scope size, for example, from 200 to 50 records per chunk when executing the database.execute batch command. Pro tip: when you hit a CPU timeout limit, do not just blame the Apex developer. CPU time is cumulative. The timeout is often caused by multiple unoptimized flows, validation rules, and managed packages all firing sequentially during the same database save.
Scenario 24. You inherit an org with immense technical debt. The opportunity object alone triggers 14 different flows, 3 legacy process builders, and 5 Apex triggers upon save. Engineering velocity has crawled to a halt, and deployments constantly fail due to random collisions. How do you establish an enterprise automation governance strategy to regain control?
Answer: I would regain control by establishing a strict automation center of excellence governed by a consolidated architectural framework. First, I would mandate a one-trigger per object framework for Apex, utilizing a handler pattern to control execution order linearly. For declarative automation, I would systematically migrate the scattered process builders and flows into a one flow per object per context model, one before save, one after save, one before delete. To keep these master flows readable, we would heavily utilize subflows for complex, isolated business logic. Finally, we establish strict development boundaries. Declarative tools are used for same record updates and simple emails, while heavy cross-object processing or external callouts are automatically pushed to Apex. Pro tip: never blindly migrate 14 workflow rules into 14 individual record-triggered flows using the automated migration tool. Use the migration as a strategic opportunity to consolidate those rules into a single master flow with decision nodes, drastically reducing your database save time.
Scenario 25. A massive Q3 Sales Cloud release deployed via standard change sets overwrites active production components, causing severe regressions and a 4-hour system rollback that infuriates the board of directors. How do you architect a modern, enterprise-grade CI and CD and deployment pipeline to prevent this?
Answer: relying on standard change sets for enterprise deployments is a massive risk. I would architect a modern release pipeline using these steps. 1. Implement source-driven development. Migrate from org-based development to source-driven development using Salesforce DX. The Git repository, not the production org, becomes the absolute single source of truth for all metadata. 2. Deploy a CI and CD orchestrator. Implement an enterprise DevOps tool like Capado, Gearset, or Salesforce DevOps Center to automate deployments, manage dependency tracking, and flag merge conflicts before they reach production. 3. Establish a strict sandbox pipeline. Enforce a sequential deployment path. Developers build in Scratch orgs or dev sandboxes, merge to a partial copy sandbox for integration testing, and deploy to a full copy sandbox for user acceptance testing UAT. 4. Automate regression and rollback. Maintain a well-defined rollback strategy using source control, validated deployment packages, and your chosen DevOps platform to rapidly restore the previous production state if issues occur. Pro tip: never test your deployments directly in production. Always perform a final staging deployment in a full copy sandbox that perfectly mirrors your production metadata and data architecture, running all local tests to validate deployment sequencing before release night.
Category 5 Conclusion.
Mastering automation architecture and platform limits proves you can build resilient, scalable systems that will not collapse under enterprise workloads. By preventing flow recursion, adhering strictly to the order of execution, optimizing for governor limits, and governing deployments via a robust CI and CD pipeline, you establish yourself as a true Salesforce architect.
Are you tired of generic interview prep? You can spend weeks studying generic interview questions, only to walk into a tech interview and realize they are asking about completely different tools and real-world scenarios. A tech title means nothing. A data engineer, DevOps engineer, or SAP consultant role is completely different at every single company. If you are not studying for the exact tech stack in the job description, you are wasting your time. That is exactly the problem we solve. Whether your upcoming interview is for SAP, DevOps, Salesforce, data engineering, cloud architecture, or cybersecurity, we will build a custom interview cheat sheet designed specifically for your target role. How we build your masterclass: you send us the exact job description. We analyze the technologies, the dependencies, and the seniority level. Then, we prepare a highly customized package with predicted interview rounds, realistic mock interview scripts, and targeted technical questions and answers. Stop guessing what managers will ask. If you have an upcoming interview and would like customized mock interview scripts and targeted practice questions and answers built specifically around your job description, feel free to email me at inquiry.aceinterviews@gmail.com. Please include these 4 details. 1. Your exact job description. 2. Your target role. 3. The interview date if known. 4. Your relevant experience level. Walk in with absolute confidence. I will personally review your submission and let you know what type of preparation package would provide the most value. We will analyze the requirements and build the exact custom mark scripts and questions and answers you need to get the offer. What if you people want a continuous study instead, with most commonly asked interview questions and answers PDFs? But what if you do not have an active interview lined up right now? If you want to proactively build your skills over time, we have recently launched our Master Vault subscription model. This is an all-access pass containing most commonly asked interview questions and answers PDFs of various tech roles in every single major technology like DevOps, SAP, testing, Salesforce, data engineering, cloud, Java and Python, etc. Choose the full bundle or specific paths, but we understand that unlocking every technology at once might feel overwhelming. If you are solely an SAP consultant, a Salesforce developer, or a DevOps engineer, you do not need the entire Master Vault. We redesigned the ecosystem so you can subscribe to the unrestricted full bundle or choose individual targeted vaults tailored specifically to your career. The universal interview tip. Whenever you ask a tech VP or an industry mentor how to crack a tough interview, they all give you the exact same tip. Get familiar with the most commonly asked interview questions. It sounds simple, right? But here is the problem. The search nightmare. Finding the actual most commonly asked questions for senior roles is a nightmare. Generic Google searches only give you basic textbook definitions, and those will not help you clear a lead architect or senior engineer round where production reality matters. Imagine a master vault. Now, imagine a vault where the absolute most commonly asked interview questions for your specific role are already collected for you, perfectly organized by interview rounds like 1. Most commonly asked technical-based question and answers. 2. Most commonly asked scenario-based question and answers. 3. Most commonly asked real-world problem-solving question and answers. 4. Most commonly asked system design question and answers. 5. Most commonly asked behavioral-based question and answers. Cross-domain mastery. I built the ACE Interviews Master Vault for the modern architect. We did not just do this for one role. We covered everything: SAP, cybersecurity, DevOps, software testing, data engineering, Java and Python. The ultimate all-access deal. Instead of paying for individual PDFs, you can now unlock our entire database. Get over 1,000 plus PDFs containing 50,000 plus of the most asked question and answers for mere 1,499 rupees a month. The elite transformation. Stop studying just to pass. Equip yourself with the cross-domain confidence of a true architect and walk out of your next interview choosing between 2 or 3 elite job offers. Unlock the vault now. The era of buying individual guides is over. Click the link in the video description below right now to unlock the Master Vault. Now, let's get back to the Masterclass.
Transition from Category 5 to Category 6.
However, perfectly executed automations and clean data pipelines mean nothing if the executive team cannot measure the results. We must now shift our focus from back-end architecture to front-end executive visibility. When the Chief Revenue Officer asks why the forecast is off by millions of dollars, you need the answer. We now transition to Category 6, Reporting, Forecasting, and Sales Intelligence.
Category 6. Reporting, Forecasting, and Sales Intelligence Scenarios.
Reporting, forecasting, and sales intelligence are how leadership measures business performance. In these scenarios, interviewers will test your ability to troubleshoot critical forecast roll-ups, resolve data discrepancies between dashboards and reports, implement historical pipeline tracking, and modernize the sales floor with AI-driven pipeline inspection.
Category 6. Reporting and Intelligence 26 to 30.
Here are the 5 critical reporting and forecasting scenarios we will solve in this category. Scenario 26, troubleshooting missing millions in collaborative forecast roll-ups. Scenario 27, resolving executive discrepancies between dashboards and reports. Scenario 28, architecting a reporting strategy for historical trends and complex metrics. Scenario 29, optimizing dashboard performance and securing sensitive visual data. Scenario 30, replacing manual pipeline tracking with pipeline inspection and AI intelligence. Let's dive into Scenario 26.
Scenario 26. It is the last week of the quarter. The VP of Sales is in a panic because the opportunity list view shows a rep has $2 million in closed-won deals, but the Collaborative Forecast tab shows absolutely zero revenue rolling up for that rep. How do you systematically troubleshoot and fix this forecast mismatch?
Answer: forecast mismatches are typically caused by hierarchy misalignments, forecast type mismatches, or mapping failures. I would troubleshoot the collaborative forecast using these 4 steps. 1. Audit the forecast hierarchy. Check the forecast hierarchy setup. A manager can sit above a rep in the standard role hierarchy, but if they are not explicitly designated as the forecast manager in the forecast hierarchy, the numbers will not roll up. 2. Verify forecast category mappings. Ensure the opportunity stage picklist values are accurately mapped to the correct forecast category. For example, closed won stage must map to the closed forecast category, not omitted. 3. Check forecast type alignment. Confirm that the user is viewing the correct forecast type, such as opportunity revenue, opportunity quantity, or product family forecast that aligns with their sales process. 4. Verify forecast settings and currency configuration. Confirm forecasting is configured for the correct forecast type and verify that multi-currency and forecast currency settings are behaving as expected for the affected opportunities. Pro tip: the most common silent failure in collaborative forecasting is the forecast hierarchy. It is completely independent of the standard role hierarchy. Whenever you promote a user to manager, you must manually assign them as a manager in the forecast hierarchy as well.
Scenario 27. The Chief Revenue Officer (CRO) complains that the global sales dashboard shows $10 million in open pipeline, but when they click into the underlying global sales report, the total mysteriously drops to $8.5 million. This discrepancy is destroying trust in the analytics platform. How do you resolve this?
Answer: I would resolve this discrepancy by systematically auditing the running user configuration, report filters, and folder permissions. First, I would check if the dashboard is set to run as a specified executive, which displays all records that executive has access to while the clicking user has limited visibility. Next, I would audit for any discrepancies in report filters, such as different time-bound defaults. Based on business requirements, I would then decide whether the business requires a dynamic dashboard running as the logged-in user to dynamically restrict access, or if they intentionally require a fixed running user to display global data, and adjust folder security accordingly. Pro tip: dashboard caching is the #1 cause of executive panic. Dashboards only refresh when scheduled or manually clicked, while reports calculate data in real time. Always check the last refreshed timestamp on the dashboard before diving into complex security troubleshooting.
Scenario 28. The finance team needs to track week-over-week changes in opportunity amounts, identify which stages are causing sales bottlenecks, and join this pipeline data with custom invoice objects. Standard reports are failing to deliver this. How do you architect this reporting strategy?
Answer: complex historical and cross-object tracking requires utilizing advanced reporting architecture. I would design the reporting strategy using these 4 tools. 1. Deploy historical trending. Enable historical trending on the opportunity object to instantly capture day-to-day and week-over-week changes in amount, stage, and close date without building clunky custom tracking objects. 2. Implement reporting snapshots. For long-term month-over-month trend analysis, configure a reporting snapshot to run on the last day of the month, automatically dumping the pipeline totals into a custom historical tracking object. 3. Utilize custom report types (CRTs). Build a custom report type that properly links opportunities with custom invoice objects, for example, opportunities with or without invoices to easily capture deals that lack billing data. 4. Leverage row-level formulas. Use row-level formulas inside the report builder to calculate real-time stage duration or specific discount metrics without cluttering the opportunity object schema with single-use formula fields. Pro tip: if you find yourself building joined reports with 5 blocks or creating dozens of formula fields just to populate one executive chart, it is time to transition that business unit to CRM analytics. Standard reporting is for operational lists. CRM analytics is for complex, multi-object enterprise intelligence.
Scenario 29. A highly complex enterprise dashboard takes over 60 seconds to load, often timing out completely. Additionally, the security team flags that junior reps are viewing enterprise-wide revenue totals they should not have access to. How do you optimize and secure this dashboard?
Answer: dashboard timeouts and security leaks are signs of unoptimized queries and poor folder architecture. I would optimize and secure the dashboard using these steps. 1. Implement dynamic dashboards. Switch the dashboard setting from Run as Specified User to Run as Logged In User to ensure junior reps only see aggregate totals for the data they are explicitly allowed to view via the sharing model. 2. Optimize underlying report filters. Use selective report filters wherever possible and avoid unnecessarily broad queries such as wildcard filters against very large datasets. Where appropriate, work with Salesforce support to evaluate custom indexing for highly queried fields. 3. Reduce component clutter. Limit the dashboard to the most critical components. Dashboards with 20-plus charts querying massive enterprise datasets will throttle platform limits. Break them down into role-specific targeted dashboards. 4. Secure folder architecture. Audit the dashboard and report folder sharing settings. Ensure folders are shared via public groups or roles rather than individually assigned users to prevent unauthorized edit or manage access. Pro tip: dynamic dashboard limits vary by Salesforce edition and licensing. Reserve them exclusively for high-value executive dashboards, where user-specific visibility is mandatory.
Scenario 30. Sales managers are wasting hours every Friday manually exporting pipeline reports to Excel to figure out which deals pushed their close dates, which deal amounts shrank, and which opportunities are sitting idle. How do you modernize this process to provide actionable intelligence?
Answer: I would eliminate the manual Excel exports by deploying pipeline inspection directly into the sales manager's Lightning environment. This natively flags key deal movements, such as pushed close dates, decreased amounts, and stage regressions, using visual indicators like red and green arrows right on the opportunity list view. Additionally, I would activate Salesforce AI capabilities such as Einstein Deal Insights to surface AI-driven predictions, proactively warning managers if an opportunity is unlikely to close based on stagnant activity or historical engagement patterns. This transforms their workflow from backward-looking manual reporting to proactive, intelligent pipeline management. Pro tip: pipeline inspection relies on Salesforce's opportunity change tracking capabilities and related platform features to surface deal movement insights. Review your edition, licensing, and feature configuration to ensure all historical insights are available.
Category 6 Conclusion.
Mastering reporting, forecasting, and sales intelligence proves you can deliver exactly what the executive team requires: total visibility. By fixing complex forecast discrepancies, optimizing enterprise dashboard performance, and replacing manual spreadsheet tracking with AI-driven pipeline inspection, you transform raw CRM data into actionable revenue intelligence.
Are you tired of generic interview prep? You can spend weeks studying generic interview questions, only to walk into a tech interview and realize they are asking about completely different tools and real-world scenarios. A tech title means nothing. A data engineer, DevOps engineer, or SAP consultant role is completely different at every single company. If you are not studying for the exact tech stack in the job description, you are wasting your time. That is exactly the problem we solve. Whether your upcoming interview is for SAP, DevOps, Salesforce, data engineering, cloud architecture, or cybersecurity, we will build a custom interview cheat sheet designed specifically for your target role. How we build your masterclass: you send us the exact job description. We analyze the technologies, the dependencies, and the seniority level. Then, we prepare a highly customized package with predicted interview rounds, realistic mock interview scripts, and targeted technical questions and answers. Stop guessing what managers will ask. If you have an upcoming interview and would like customized mock interview scripts and targeted practice questions and answers built specifically around your job description, feel free to email me at inquiry.aceinterviews@gmail.com. Please include these 4 details: 1. Your exact job description. 2. Your target role. 3. The interview date if known. 4. Your relevant experience level. Walk in with absolute confidence. I will personally review your submission and let you know what type of preparation package would provide the most value. We will analyze the requirements and build the exact custom mark scripts and questions and answers you need to get the offer. What if you people want a continuous study instead, with most commonly asked interview questions and answers PDFs? But what if you do not have an active interview lined up right now? If you want to proactively build your skills over time, we have recently launched our Master Vault subscription model. This is an all-access pass containing most commonly asked interview questions and answers PDFs of various tech roles in every single major technology like DevOps, SAP, testing, Salesforce, data engineering, cloud, Java and Python, etc. Choose the full bundle or specific paths, but we understand that unlocking every technology at once might feel overwhelming. If you are solely an SAP consultant, a Salesforce developer, or a DevOps engineer, you do not need the entire Master Vault. We redesigned the ecosystem so you can subscribe to the unrestricted full bundle or choose individual targeted vaults tailored specifically to your career. The universal interview tip. Whenever you ask a tech VP or an industry mentor how to crack a tough interview, they all give you the exact same tip. Get familiar with the most commonly asked interview questions. It sounds simple, right? But here is the problem. The search nightmare. Finding the actual most commonly asked questions for senior roles is a nightmare. Generic Google searches only give you basic textbook definitions, and those will not help you clear a lead architect or senior engineer round where production reality matters. Imagine a master vault. Now, imagine a vault where the absolute most commonly asked interview questions for your specific role are already collected for you, perfectly organized by interview rounds like 1. Most commonly asked technical-based question and answers. 2. Most commonly asked scenario-based question and answers. 3. Most commonly asked real-world problem-solving question and answers. 4. Most commonly asked system design question and answers. 5. Most commonly asked behavioral-based question and answers. Cross-domain mastery. I built the ACE Interviews Master Vault for the modern architect. We did not just do this for one role. We covered everything: SAP, cybersecurity, DevOps, software testing, data engineering, Java and Python. The ultimate all-access deal. Instead of paying for individual PDFs, you can now unlock our entire database. Get over 1,000 plus PDFs containing 50,000 plus of the most asked question and answers for mere 1,499 rupees a month. The elite transformation. Stop studying just to pass. Equip yourself with the cross-domain confidence of a true architect and walk out of your next interview choosing between 2 or 3 elite job offers. Unlock the vault now. The era of buying individual guides is over. Click the link in the video description below right now to unlock the Master Vault. Now, let's get back to the Masterclass.
Transition from Category 6 to Category 7.
However, while analytics tell you times what times happened, modern sales teams need tools that tell them times what to do next. The industry is rapidly shifting away from static CRM databases into intelligent, AI-driven workspaces. We now transition to the fastest-growing area in enterprise Salesforce interviews. Category 7. Modern Salesforce AI and Productivity.
Category 7. Modern Salesforce AI and Productivity.
Modern Salesforce AI and productivity scenarios separate forward-thinking architects from legacy administrators. Interviewers will test your ability to unclutter legacy UI with dynamic forms, unify fragmented datasets using Data Cloud, accelerate outbound sales teams with sales engagement, and deploy Agentforce securely without hallucinations.
Category 7. Modern AI and Productivity 31 to 35.
Here are the 5 highly modern AI and UI scenarios we will solve in this category. Scenario 31. Upgrading cluttered legacy page layouts to context-aware dynamic forms. Scenario 32. Deploying Agentforce and AI safely to accelerate sales velocity. Scenario 33. Unifying fragmented external data for cross-selling using Data Cloud. Scenario 34. Automating high-volume outbound outreach with sales engagement cadences. Scenario 35. Maximizing enterprise upsell revenue using whitespace analysis and account planning. Let's dive into Scenario 31.
Scenario 31. Sales representatives are complaining about data entry fatigue. They have to scroll through 150 fields on the opportunity page, most of which are only relevant during the final negotiation stage, leading to data quality issues and low CRM adoption. How do you resolve this UI clutter without writing custom code?
Answer: legacy page layouts cannot conditionally render fields, causing massive UI clutter. I would modernize the user experience using dynamic forms and dynamic related lists through these steps. 1. Migrate to dynamic forms. Upgrade the Lightning Record page to dynamic forms to break the monolithic page layout into individual manageable field sections. 2. Implement stage-based visibility. Configure component visibility rules so that specific field sections, like discount approvals or implementation details, only appear dynamically when the opportunity stage reaches negotiation. 3. Apply profile-based filtering. Conditionally hide sensitive or administrative fields from standard sales reps, displaying them only when the logged-in user has a sales operations profile or a specific permission set. 4. Deploy dynamic related lists. Upgrade standard related lists to dynamic related lists to filter records natively on the page, such as displaying only open tasks or approved quotes without requiring users to click View All. Pro tip: when migrating a highly complex object with multiple record types to dynamic forms, do not just recreate the exact same layout. Use the migration as an architectural opportunity to audit field usage and deprecate stale fields before building the new dynamic rules.
Scenario 32. Sales velocity is dropping because account executives spend hours reading past call notes and drafting follow-up emails instead of actively selling. The VP of Sales wants to deploy Agentforce to automate these tasks, but the legal team is terrified of AI hallucinating false product guarantees to customers. How do you architect a secure AI deployment?
Answer: I would bridge the gap between sales velocity and legal compliance by deploying Agentforce with appropriate governance and human review controls. First, I would configure generative AI features to act strictly as drafting assistants. The AI can summarize opportunity histories and generate follow-up emails, but we configure approvals and user review workflows, so AI-generated content is reviewed and approved by a human before it is sent to customers. Second, I would ground the generative models using Salesforce's Data Cloud and the Einstein Trust Layer, ensuring the AI only retrieves context from verified, internal CRM data rather than public knowledge. Finally, we implement masking policies inside the trust layer to ensure customer PII is never exposed to external large language models during the generation process. Pro tip: the biggest risk with deploying AI in Sales Cloud is poor underlying data quality. Generative AI will confidently summarize garbage data if your org suffers from duplicate contacts or outdated opportunity notes. You must enforce strict data hygiene before turning on Agentforce.
Scenario 33. Enterprise sales reps are missing massive cross-sell opportunities because customer data is highly fragmented. Website clickstreams live in Marketing Cloud, purchase history lives in an external ERP, and active pipelines live in Sales Cloud. How do you architect a unified customer profile to drive personalized selling?
Answer: fragmented customer data requires a robust data harmonization strategy. I would utilize Salesforce Data Cloud to unify these disparate sources using the following architectural framework. 1. Ingest disparate data streams. Ingest data using supported Salesforce connectors, APIs, middleware, or other enterprise integration mechanisms appropriate for each source system to feed digital engagement from Marketing Cloud, transactional data from the ERP, and CRM data from Sales Cloud into the Data Cloud data lake. 2. Harmonize to the standard data model. Map these ingested data streams to the customer 360 data model, translating completely different external schemas into a standard vocabulary for accounts and contacts. 3. Execute identity resolution. Configure deterministic and probabilistic matching rules to reconcile fragmented identities, for example, matching a web visitor's email to a Sales Cloud contact ID into a single unified individual profile. 4. Activate insights back to Sales Cloud. Create calculated insights, such as high propensity to buy, and activate them by pushing those metrics directly onto the Sales Cloud contact page to guide the rep's next conversation. Pro tip: Data Cloud is not a direct replacement for an operational integration tool like MuleSoft. Data Cloud is designed for analytical aggregation, identity resolution, and segmentation. Use it to feed AI and surface insights, but continue using middleware for real-time transactional synchronization like order creation.
Scenario 34. Your high-volume inbound sales development reps SDRs are missing their connection quotas. They are manually tracking follow-up calls in Excel, forgetting to send second-touch emails, and struggling to manage their daily pipeline. How do you modernize and automate this outbound SDR workflow?
Answer: high-volume SDR teams require structured, automated outreach. I would modernize their workflow by implementing Salesforce Sales Engagement, formerly High Velocity Sales, using these steps. 1. Design automated cadences. Build branch sales cadences that define the exact sequence of outreach steps, such as sending an automated introductory email on day 1, followed by a scheduled phone call task on day 3. 2. Utilize the work queue. Train SDRs to use the work queue as the primary workspace within the Lightning console, which automatically prioritizes and feeds them their next best action based on the active cadence. 3. Integrate Einstein Activity Capture (EAC). Enable EAC to automatically sync email replies and calendar events, allowing the cadence logic to dynamically branch if a prospect replies to an email versus ignoring it. 4. Establish lead routing to cadences. Build a record-triggered flow that automatically adds newly qualified inbound leads to the specific cadence, completely eliminating the need for manual rep assignment. Pro tip: do not build overly rigid 30-day cadences without exit criteria. Always include automated exit rules, such as email reply or stage equals unqualified, so reps are not forced to manually remove prospects who have already engaged or disqualified themselves.
Scenario 35. Enterprise account managers are failing to grow revenue within their top-tier accounts. They treat large enterprise clients exactly like single-transaction SMB deals, lacking visibility into the organizational hierarchy and failing to identify white space for cross-selling. How do you architect a strategic account planning framework?
Answer: I would architect a strategic account planning framework to shift the focus from transactional opportunities to long-term relationship growth. First, I would implement robust account hierarchies and map the complex web of parent-child corporate relationships, enabling reps to see total roll-up revenue across a global enterprise. Second, I would implement a whitespace analysis capability using the organization's Salesforce Sales Planning where licensed, CRM Analytics, Data Cloud, or a custom reporting solution to identify products or services not yet adopted by the customer, visually highlighting unsold solutions. Finally, we implement custom account plans or leverage Salesforce sales planning tools to establish structured revenue targets, relationship maps to identify champions versus blockers, and automated reminders for quarterly executive business reviews with the client. Pro tip: whitespace analysis is nearly impossible if your opportunity products and assets are messy. Ensure your integration with the ERP cleanly populates the asset or subscription objects upon deal closure, so account managers have a mathematically perfect baseline of what the customer already owns before attempting to cross-sell.
Category 7. Conclusion.
Mastering modern Salesforce AI and productivity proves you are ready for the future of the platform. By successfully uncluttering the user experience with dynamic forms, deploying Agentforce with strict human guardrails, unifying datasets through Data Cloud, and accelerating outreach with sales engagement, you transform Salesforce from a passive database into a proactive revenue engine.
Are you tired of generic interview prep? You can spend weeks studying generic interview questions, only to walk into a tech interview and realize they are asking about completely different tools and real-world scenarios. A tech title means nothing. A data engineer, DevOps engineer, or SAP consultant role is completely different at every single company. If you are not studying for the exact tech stack in the job description, you are wasting your time. That is exactly the problem we solve. Whether your upcoming interview is for SAP, DevOps, Salesforce, data engineering, cloud architecture, or cybersecurity, we will build a custom interview cheat sheet designed specifically for your target role. How we build your masterclass: you send us the exact job description. We analyze the technologies, the dependencies, and the seniority level. Then, we prepare a highly customized package with predicted interview rounds, realistic mock interview scripts, and targeted technical questions and answers. Stop guessing what managers will ask. If you have an upcoming interview and would like customized mock interview scripts and targeted practice questions and answers built specifically around your job description, feel free to email me at inquiry.aceinterviews@gmail.com. Please include these 4 details. 1. Your exact job description. 2. Your target role. 3. The interview date if known. 4. Your relevant experience level. Walk in with absolute confidence. I will personally review your submission and let you know what type of preparation package would provide the most value. We will analyze the requirements and build the exact custom mock scripts and questions and answers you need to get the offer. What if you people want a continuous study instead with most commonly asked interview questions and answers PDFs? But what if you do not have an active interview lined up right now? If you want to proactively build your skills over time, we have recently launched our Master Vault subscription model. This is an all-access pass containing most commonly asked interview questions and answers PDFs of various tech roles in every single major technology like DevOps, SAP, testing, Salesforce, data engineering, cloud, Java and Python, etc. Choose the full bundle or specific paths, but we understand that unlocking every technology at once might feel overwhelming. If you are solely an SAP consultant, a Salesforce developer, or a DevOps engineer, you do not need the entire Master Vault. We redesigned the ecosystem so you can subscribe to the unrestricted full bundle or choose individual targeted vaults tailored specifically to your career. The universal interview tip. Whenever you ask a tech VP or an industry mentor how to crack a tough interview, they all give you the exact same tip. Get familiar with the most commonly asked interview questions. It sounds simple, right? But here is the problem. The search nightmare. Finding the actual most commonly asked questions for senior roles is a nightmare. Generic Google searches only give you basic textbook definitions, and those will not help you clear a lead architect or senior engineer round where production reality matters. Imagine a master vault. Now, imagine a vault where the absolute most commonly asked interview questions for your specific role are already collected for you, perfectly organized by interview rounds like 1. Most commonly asked technical-based question and answers. 2. Most commonly asked scenario-based question and answers. 3. Most commonly asked real-world problem-solving question and answers. 4. Most commonly asked system design question and answers. 5. Most commonly asked behavioral-based question and answers. Cross-domain mastery. I built the ACE Interviews Master Vault for the modern architect. We did not just do this for one role. We covered everything: SAP, cybersecurity, DevOps, software testing, data engineering, Java and Python. The ultimate all-access deal. Instead of paying for individual PDFs, you can now unlock our entire database. Get over 1,000 plus PDFs containing 50,000 plus of the most asked question and answers for mere 1,499 rupees a month. The elite transformation. Stop studying just to pass. Equip yourself with the cross-domain confidence of a true architect and walk out of your next interview choosing between 2 or 3 elite job offers. Unlock the vault now. The era of buying individual guides is over. Click the link in the video description below right now to unlock the Master Vault. Now, let's get back to the Masterclass.
Transition from Category 7 to Category 8.
However, no matter how intelligent or automated your internal sales cloud environment is, it does not exist in a vacuum. To recognize revenue and fulfill orders, Salesforce must talk to external billing systems, inventory databases, and channel partners. We now transition to the final and most advanced architectural tier. Category 8. Enterprise Integrations, Industry Scenarios and Consulting.
Category 8. Enterprise Integrations and Consulting.
Enterprise integrations and consulting scenarios are the ultimate test for senior architects and consultants. Interviewers will push you to design event-driven architectures, troubleshoot failing ERP synchronizations, establish secure partner relationship management portals, and most importantly, diplomatically push back against executives demanding terrible technical customizations.
Category 8. Integrations and Consulting 36 to 40.
Here are the final 5 high-stakes enterprise scenarios we will solve in this masterclass. Scenario 36. Troubleshooting severe API integration failures and payload drops. Scenario 37. Architecting reliable quote-to-cash synchronization with external ERPs. Scenario 38. Designing event-driven architecture to replace brittle point-to-point integrations. Scenario 39. Expanding revenue channels using Experience Cloud and deal registration. Scenario 40. Managing stakeholders and pushing back against unrealistic business requests. Let's dive into Scenario 36.
Scenario 36. During a massive digital marketing campaign, the REST API integration from your middleware tool completely crashes. Thousands of new leads fail to sync into Salesforce, and the marketing team is losing thousands of dollars in uncaptured ad spend. How do you troubleshoot and restore this API integration?
Answer: restoring a broken enterprise integration requires isolating the failure point between the middleware and the Salesforce platform. I would troubleshoot this using the following sequence. 1. Audit the 24-hour API limits. Check the API usage in System Overview to verify if the massive influx of campaign leads exhausted the org's 24-hour API request limit, forcing Salesforce to reject incoming payloads. 2. Verify authentication and certificates. Confirm that the OAuth token utilized by the middleware has not expired, and verify that any required TLS certificates or IP whitelists have not been unexpectedly modified. 3. Inspect middleware error logs. Access the middleware such as MuleSoft dead letter queue to review the specific REST error codes. Look for 400 bad request errors, which often indicate a newly added required field or validation rule in Salesforce is rejecting the payload. 4. Implement exponential retry strategies. Configure the middleware with an automated retry mechanism that catches transient connection timeouts and attempts the payload insertion using an exponential backoff strategy. Pro tip: a very common cause of integration failures is a Salesforce metadata change, such as a new validation rule, required field, or picklist modification, that unintentionally breaks the integration contract with external systems.
Scenario 37. The finance team reports a catastrophic error in the quote-to-cash process. Closed-won opportunities are syncing to the SAP ERP, but network retries are causing duplicate orders to be generated, and product pricing mismatches are delaying revenue recognition. How do you re-architect this ERP synchronization?
Answer: quote-to-cash integrations must be mathematically perfect and resilient against duplicate transactions. I would architect this synchronization using these 4 steps. 1. Enforce idempotent processing. Design the middleware payload to include a unique transaction ID. The ERP must verify this ID to ensure that if a network timeout causes the middleware to retry the sync, the ERP does not accidentally create a duplicate order. 2. Lock down external IDs. Use external IDs on accounts, products, and price books in Salesforce that strictly mirror the primary keys in the ERP, ensuring the systems always update the exact same records. 3. Establish a single source of truth for pricing. Architect the flow so that Salesforce acts as the system of engagement for quoting, but the ERP acts as the absolute system of record for final tax calculations and approved SKU pricing. 4. Implement staging tables and error logging. Create a custom integration log object in Salesforce. If the ERP rejects an order due to a credit hold or missing data, the middleware writes the exact error code back to the Salesforce opportunity so the sales rep can fix it. Pro tip: never use text-based standard name fields like account name or product name as the matching criteria for an ERP integration. If a sales rep fixes a typo in a company name, the integration will break. Always use immutable external IDs.
Scenario 38. The Chief Information Officer (CIO) mandates a shift away from brittle, point-to-point nightly batch integrations. They want a modern, real-time architecture to synchronize Salesforce with 3 external databases, but the engineering team is terrified of hitting Salesforce API limits. How do you design this architecture?
Answer: moving to a modern, real-time enterprise architecture requires decoupling the systems using an event-driven model. I would design the architecture as follows. 1. Deploy platform events. Replace point-to-point API calls with Salesforce platform events. Publish a platform event that can be consumed directly by Salesforce subscribers or relayed through an enterprise event streaming platform such as Kafka when required by the overall architecture. 2. Utilize Change Data Capture CDC. For data replication to external data warehouses, enable CDC. This automatically broadcasts real-time record changes without requiring developers to write custom Apex triggers. 3. Leverage the Composite API. For inbound integrations that need to create an account, contact, and opportunity simultaneously, use the Composite API to bundle these related records into a single API call, drastically reducing limit consumption. 4. Retain Bulk API for mass data loads. Maintain the Bulk API exclusively for massive, asynchronous nightly ETL jobs, like territory realignments or external data migrations, where real-time processing is unnecessary. Pro tip: the most common architectural mistake is making times everything times real time. If an external analytics warehouse only updates its dashboards once every 24 hours, do not waste API limits streaming real-time platform events to it. Match the integration pattern to the actual business requirement.
Scenario 39. Your enterprise is expanding its go-to-market strategy to include external resellers and channel partners. These partners need to submit deal registrations and collaborate on leads, but the Chief Information Security Officer (CISO) refuses to allow non-employees access to your internal sales cloud org. How do you architect this channel sales ecosystem?
Answer: I would architect this ecosystem by deploying Salesforce Experience Cloud to create a secure partner relationship management (PRM) portal. Instead of granting external users internal licenses, partners log into a branded portal utilizing Experience Cloud partner user licenses. I would implement strict sharing sets and account role hierarchies to ensure that partner A can only view and edit the leads and opportunities they personally registered, completely isolating their data from partner B. Finally, I would configure a standardized deal registration approval process, allowing our internal channel managers to review, approve, and avoid channel conflict before the partner begins actively working the deal. Pro tip: if your company is simultaneously expanding into B2C direct sales, you will likely need to enable person accounts. Be extremely cautious. Enabling person accounts is irreversible and fundamentally alters your org's data model, impacting integrations, sharing rules, and app exchange packages.
Scenario 40. The VP of Sales is frustrated with a cluttered pipeline and demands that you immediately write a custom Apex trigger to automatically hard delete any opportunity that has not been edited in 60 days. This violates financial audit laws and platform best practices. How do you handle this request and recommend a scalable solution?
Answer: I would never blindly execute a request that introduces systemic risk. Instead, I would employ a consultative approach by addressing the underlying business pain point. A cluttered pipeline. I would respectfully push back, explaining that hard deleting financial records violates corporate audit compliance and destroys historical conversion metrics. I would then propose a best practice alternative, deploying a scheduled flow that runs nightly to automatically update idle opportunities to a closed lost unresponsive stage, and dynamically filtering them out of the active pipeline list views. This completely solves the VP's clutter issue while preserving historical data and auditability. Pro tip: a top-tier Salesforce consultant does not simply build whatever the client asks for. The highest value you provide is identifying the root business problem and solving it using scalable, declarative platform best practices rather than brittle custom code.
Conclusion.
Thank you for completing this Salesforce Sales Cloud Interview Masterclass. We have systematically analyzed 40 of the most critical enterprise scenarios, ranging from lead routing and complex security visibility to automated DevOps and multi-cloud integrations. If these scenarios helped you prepare for your technical evaluations, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Good luck with your upcoming interviews.
Are you tired of generic interview prep? You can spend weeks studying generic interview questions, only to walk into a tech interview and realize they are asking about completely different tools and real-world scenarios. A tech title means nothing. A data engineer, DevOps engineer, or SAP consultant role is completely different at every single company. If you are not studying for the exact tech stack in the job description, you are wasting your time. That is exactly the problem we solve. Whether your upcoming interview is for SAP, DevOps, Salesforce, data engineering, cloud architecture, or cybersecurity, we will build a custom interview cheat sheet designed specifically for your target role. How we build your masterclass: you send us the exact job description. We analyze the technologies, the dependencies, and the seniority level. Then, we prepare a highly customized package with predicted interview rounds, realistic mock interview scripts, and targeted technical questions and answers. Stop guessing what managers will ask. If you have an upcoming interview and would like customized mock interview scripts and targeted practice questions and answers built specifically around your job description, feel free to email me at inquiry.aceinterviews@gmail.com. Please include these 4 details: 1. Your exact job description. 2. Your target role. 3. The interview date if known. 4. Your relevant experience level. Walk in with absolute confidence. I will personally review your submission and let you know what type of preparation package would provide the most value. We will analyze the requirements and build the exact custom mock scripts and questions and answers you need to get the offer. What if you people want a continuous study instead, with most commonly asked interview questions and answers PDFs? But what if you do not have an active interview lined up right now? If you want to proactively build your skills over time, we have recently launched our Master Vault subscription model. This is an all-access pass containing most commonly asked interview questions and answers PDFs of various tech roles in every single major technology like DevOps, SAP, testing, Salesforce, data engineering, cloud, Java and Python, etc. Choose the full bundle or specific paths, but we understand that unlocking every technology at once might feel overwhelming. If you are solely an SAP consultant, a Salesforce developer, or a DevOps engineer, you do not need the entire Master Vault. We redesigned the ecosystem so you can subscribe to the unrestricted full bundle or choose individual targeted vaults tailored specifically to your career. The universal interview tip. Whenever you ask a tech VP or an industry mentor how to crack a tough interview, they all give you the exact same tip: get familiar with the most commonly asked interview questions. It sounds simple, right? But here is the problem. The search nightmare. Finding the actual most commonly asked questions for senior roles is a nightmare. Generic Google searches only give you basic textbook definitions, and those will not help you clear a lead architect or senior engineer round where production reality matters. Imagine a master vault. Now, imagine a vault where the absolute most commonly asked interview questions for your specific role are already collected for you, perfectly organized by interview rounds like 1. Most commonly asked technical-based question and answers. 2. Most commonly asked scenario-based question and answers. 3. Most commonly asked real-world problem-solving question and answers. 4. Most commonly asked system design question and answers. 5. Most commonly asked behavioral-based question and answers. Cross-domain mastery. I built the ACE Interviews Master Vault for the modern architect. We did not just do this for one role. We covered everything: SAP, cybersecurity, DevOps, software testing, data engineering, Java, and Python. The ultimate all-access deal. Instead of paying for individual PDFs, you can now unlock our entire database. Get over 1,000 plus PDFs containing 50,000 plus of the most asked question and answers for a mere 1,499 rupees a month. The elite transformation. Stop studying just to pass. Equip yourself with the cross-domain confidence of a true architect and walk out of your next interview choosing between 2 or 3 elite job offers. Unlock the vault now. The era of buying individual guides is over. Click the link in the video description below right now to unlock the Master Vault. Now, let's get back to the masterclass.
For more exciting tips, tricks, and more importantly, for valuable insights of interviews, please share, like, and subscribe to my channel. It has a lot of valuable information about various insights of interviews. It has a wide range of real-world portfolio projects of various technologies for interviews, and it has wide range of most asked interview questions and answers of various technologies like data science, SAP, AWS, DevOps, and full-stack web development, and more. That will be useful during interviews. It has a wide range of most asked interview questions and answers and real-world portfolio projects of various technologies for freshers. For 2 to 3 years, experienced candidates, and for 5 or above years, experienced candidates to test their skills by knowing most asked interview questions and make themselves ready for interviews.